I got a couple of new pens over the holiday break, and they are the Ferris wheel press brush fountain pens. And I'm not quite sure I'm sold on them. Welcome back to Stationery at 4. I got two pens from Ferris wheel press, and they're actually the same pen. They are the fountain pen, the brush fountain pens, and one is a gold plated and the other is they're just regular steel nibs. It's interesting with respect to the prices on both of these pens and taking advantage of the holiday sale. The question that comes to my mind is, at regular price, are these pens worth it? And would I pay that much money to use these pens? There's no denying that aesthetically, just even looking at their website and the marketing material that comes up on the Ferris wheel press page, these pens are marketed beautifully. And when you're holding them in your hands, they do have a strong aesthetic appeal that you do get sold on. So there's no denying that. But when I take a closer look with respect to how much these pens cost regularly, taking advantage of the holiday sale, and what you're getting for that money, I do wonder. And I'll get into all those details here in this video. First off, I bought this pen directly from Ferris wheel press, and this pen I got off of Kijiji, which is effectively like a Craigslist for those who don't have Kijiji in your backyard. And thank you, Cindy, very much for this pen and giving me a very good price on it and being so kind and gracious throughout getting the pen over. With that being said, let's take a closer look. The two pens that I have here are the Printmaker's Teal and the Sandcastle Gray. The Printmaker's Teal is a true teal. It's a gorgeous teal. The Sandcastle Gray, I don't know if it's really easy to see on the video. It's what I would best describe as a slightly off-white, if not tinted with light pink. There is a very light pink tint to it. The pen itself is fairly small. It's slim, designed to be similar to a paintbrush. The pen has a hexagonal nut in the cap that's meant to act as a roll stop or to stop the pen from rolling. It doesn't have a pen clip, and that hexagonal nut is made out of brass. Unscrewing the pen, it is a screw-on cap. My body is coming away from my grip section, so I'm just going to tighten that up. Here is the pen. It's got gorgeous detailing in a brass grip section here. This is a steel nib. This is also a fine nib. Threads for where the cap to screw onto. Plastic nib feed. Unlike most pens out there, the nib does not actually indicate the size of it. It's actually the grip section that indicates the size. Again, this one is a fine. Unscrewing the body from the grip section, you'll see that there is a converter which comes standard, and the converter is just a friction fit that fits right into the grip section. It's a fairly decent sized international standard size converter. The body has threads in here as well, to both for the cap on the outside and for threads on the inside for screwing onto the grip section. And that is the pen. It is fairly small, and while you can post the cap onto the body, I don't feel very comfortable with that, just given the fact that the cap has some threads in there to grip onto the grip section, and it will definitely leave marks and scuffs on your body. The Printmaker's Teal, same pen, only difference is the fact that the Printmaker's Teal has a gold-plated nib. According to the website, this is a 14 karat gold-plated nib. It is more expensive, but everything else is identical. I find that the gold-plated nib does show the detailing on the nib a little bit easier with respect to showing the Ferris wheel press, and this is also a fine nib. The Sandcastle Gray is 130 Canadian dollars. Thanks to Cindy on Kijiji, I was able to get this for much cheaper, for about 110 with shipping. The Printmaker's Teal here is 165 Canadian dollars regularly, And again, I bought this during the Christmas holiday sale last year, and it was already discounted, and then there was an additional 15% discount, and that came down to roughly around $115 as well. The things I like about this pen, it's a gorgeous pen to look at. The aesthetics are right on point. It draws you in. It has that old world feel that Ferris wheel press is known for. It goes well with their other products. I talked about this in another video with respect to the Ferris wheel press folio and their feather notebook. And combining all together, it looks beautiful, and it's meant to be a package deal with respect to the intended use. The whole point of the Ferris wheel press brush fountain pen is exactly what it sounds like, a brush fountain pen. It's meant to replicate the idea of a paintbrush. And the intent, I think, behind what Ferris wheel press was thinking about when they marketed this pen was the paintbrush appeal and being creative and looking at sketches and writing and going back to, a couple 300 years ago type of deal, in the days of, to romanticize this a little bit, in the days of Leonardo da Vinci and using his paintbrushes to come up with beautiful and creative, innovative designs. So it definitely speaks to that in terms of the aesthetics. The other thing that I really like, that it comes with a converter, and for that price, you'd expect it to come with a converter. When it goes on sale and you've got a more equivalent price compared to, let's say, the Y Studio, then I would say it's not necessarily guaranteed when you're around the $100 mark that you would get a converter with this pen. But the fact that they throw in a nice converter and it's got a lot of ink capacity, I think is a brilliant inclusion. Comparing the pens to other pens of similar size, here is a Pilot Metro, here is a Lamy Safari, and here's the Y Studio, which I find is to be the most similar to the Ferris wheel pens here. Here's a Conklin for comparison. Unscrewing the cap for all these pens, you can see that the Ferris wheel press brush fountain pen is a little bit smaller in the body section. And while it's similar in size to the Pilot Metro, the slimness of the body itself, I find the slimness of the fountain of the Ferris wheel press pen versus the Pilot Metro, I find that the slimness is a little bit, just a touch too small for my hands, while the Pilot Metro is more of an ideal size for my hands. The Y Studio is the pen that I would describe it to be the most similar to. The Y Studio here has a longer body. The grip section is smaller, but the nibs are fairly similar, if not identical, number 5s. I find myself gravitating to the Y Studio more though, because of the balance in my hands, the size, just that extra little bit of length. And while the grip section is small, I do find that it's more than adequate for my hands. The Ferris wheel pen, the slimness of the body is what throws me off. It's just a little touch too small. And while I do like the length in the grip section, or the amount in the grip section, I just find that the pen is a little too dainty in my hands. I've tried this with different inks, and I've thrown every single ink that I own at it, from standards to great sheeners to heavy shimmer inks, and this pen just writes no matter what, which is very surprising given the fact that most of my other pens will gunk up with the shimmers, but this pen just writes. Here's a writing sample of the pen. It writes smoothly and beautifully. The ink flow is consistent no matter which ink I throw at it. This is a fine nib. Brush fountain pen. I'm writing with the printmaker teal, and this is gold plated. This is inked with a diamine blush. The Sandcastle Gray is inked with a shimmer ink, And what I really enjoy about this pen is that no matter how much of a heavy writing ink that I throw into it, such as the diamine shimmer inks here, the pen just writes. And oddly enough, I would say in terms of feedback, and out of the two pens, the Sandcastle Gray that has just the stainless steel nib feels a touch smoother. And this is inked with a Diamine Celebration, which is a shimmer. Now, it being a fine nib, the shimmer doesn't show all that well, but it is there if I change the lighting and twist the notebook up and down here. Great writing experience, very smooth. Things I don't like about these pens. Now, out of the two, when I go to unscrew this pen, the body stays onto the grip section. But the thing that drives me absolutely nuts with this pen here, the Sandcastle Gray, is when I go to unscrew the body from the cap, I always seem to pull away from the grip section, and so I have to tighten that up onto the grip section. And out of the two pens, it seems to be with the Sandcastle Gray only, but I don't know if that's just a thing over time. This was a used pen, this is brand new, and I don't know if that just loosens over time. And every single time that grip section just comes right off, which is annoying. You'd think for a pen this price that that's something that would not happen. Maybe if I really tighten it, let's see if that works. Same thing. The grip section pulls away from the body, or unthreads from the body. The pen itself is small. It feels small. And I have paintbrushes, and I tend to like my paintbrushes a little bit fatter. But regardless, I get it. They were going after that paintbrush appeal, and paintbrushes generally are fairly skinny instruments or implements. And so it's got a very similar styling behind it going after that paintbrush. Now, what I think is unfortunate about that is when you're going for longer writing sessions, at least for me in my hands, I feel like it doesn't quite get there for me. And the balance in the pen being kind of front weighted with the brass, and the fact that it's small in the back end and you can't post these, it just it feels like it's not quite there for a full writing instrument. The other thing that I don't necessarily like about this pen is the fact that the fine nib writes like an extra fine. It's pretty fine, and I was a bit surprised about that. I couldn't really find any details with respect to where the nibs were manufactured or what kind of nib it was, whether it's just a standard Yowo nib. It's a number 5 nib for sure because it looks fairly small, but I do wonder what a medium would have looked like. So I'm kind of kicking myself for not getting a medium-sized nib in one of the pens to at least compare against each other. The weighting feels odd in my hand with the pen cap unscrewed. It just feels like it's not quite balanced in my hand. It seems just a touch heavy here, and then there's no weight throughout the rest of it. The pen's very, very light. Whereas I find the thing that I like about my Y Studio, the weight is very well balanced throughout my hand, so it rests perfectly both on the back end and on the front end. Whereas with the Ferris wheel press, that weight is just sort of weirdly right at the very edge of the nib there. As I mentioned about the weighting, it does feel a little bit odd in my hand, the fact that it doesn't post, and I can generally take it or leave it when it comes to posting pens, but this one I definitely don't want to post because the thread section inside the cap is going to wreck the pen, so I don't want to wreck the aesthetics. But then the weighting feels a bit weird. That's a subjective thing and it's personal, and I get it. That would be primarily just me who might feel that way. The last thing I don't like is the fact that the gold nib costs an extra $35. And while I got a good sale on it over the holidays, I just don't think the gold nib is worth the price hike. Because they're identical nibs. It's just gold plated. It doesn't offer any different writing experience. And it's just an aesthetic you're paying for. But is $35 too much for an aesthetic? Well, that is subjective. In my opinion, I think that while beautiful and my wife really likes it, just don't know if it really adds all that much for the extra price. The question I started out the video with is, would I pay this much money for this fountain pen? And while I got a good deal at the holiday season here, and the pens were fairly discounted, and one was off of effectively Craigslist there, I don't know that I would go out of my way to buy this pen at regular price. I think for me, I feel like it's a little overpriced at the regular pricing offer. But happily, I would pick one up at a discounted price on a holiday sale. Now, would I want more of these in my life? That's the other question that I've been kind of sitting here with. No, I think the one's good for me. I don't need to get different colors in it. I feel like it's just not my pen at the end of the day. And so it feels like one was good enough for me. Now, my wife, who the printmaker teal is for, she loves it. And it goes well with her folio from Ferris Wheel Press, and she likes to use it for jotting notes really quickly. And for her, the fine nib is perfect. For her, the smallness of the pen is perfect. So I would say that it is a very subjective thing. For me, not so much. I think the price, which I keep harping on, I would like to have seen a little bit more. Perhaps a number 6 size nib involved in the pen. I think the pen body, if it could have been a little bit larger, I think it would be good for a daily driver. It's fine for quick notes, I think. It's fine for experimenting with different inks, I think. And I think the length when it's uncapped, I feel like it could be a touch larger given the slimness of the pen. Again, would I go out of my way to buy another one? Not so sure. I think if Ferris Wheel Press were to iterate this pen and revise the design a little bit, I'd be keen to see that, and I'd be curious about that. A little bit more heftness in the pen, I think would just solidify it as a good daily driver writing instrument. Thanks very much for joining me today. I hope that was helpful in your considerations of new fountain pen purchases. If you liked what you saw in this video, please consider clicking on the subscribe and like buttons below. Take care, have a great day, and I will see you soon. Bye for now.